Alan Watts' warning, the hidden trap between work and play. Imagine waking up every day, stepping into the rhythm of routine emails, deadlines, meetings, chores, and telling yourself that all this is for something, that the grind has a purpose, that eventually all this effort will bring you to a place where life really begins. But here's the catch, that place never comes. And that's exactly what Alan Watts tried to warn us about. He saw something most people miss, even after decades of working, that our obsession with work and our distorted understanding of play have trapped us in a cycle where we are always on our way, but never arriving. We've been programmed from our earliest years to believe that life is a journey with a destination. Work hard now so you can enjoy later, but suffer today for the sake of tomorrow. But what if tomorrow never delivers on its promise? What if we've misunderstood the very nature of why we're here? Watts challenges us with a brutally honest question: are you living to work or working to live? And deeper still, is there even a difference anymore? We live in a world that glorifies productivity and demonizes idleness. But as children, we're told to pick a path, a career, a mission. We're taught to chase goals like medals in a game we didn't design. But no one tells us that the game never ends, and that the goalposts keep moving, that the satisfaction we're chasing is always slightly out of reach. It's like running on a treadmill that's disguised as a road. You think you're going somewhere, but you're just exhausting yourself in place. What Alan Watts saw is that the real trap isn't just in how we work, but in how we think about work. We treat it as the price of admission to a good life. But that mindset creates a false dichotomy. Work is what we have to do, and play is what we get to do if there's time. This division poisons both. Work becomes drudgery, and play becomes guilt-ridden or fleeting. And in the middle, we forget how to just be. But what if play isn't the opposite of work? What if play is the essence of life itself? Watts compared life not to a journey, but to a dance. The purpose of dancing isn't to arrive at a final step, but it's to enjoy each movement, each note, each moment. You don't play music to get to the last chord. You play it to hear every sound. What if that's how life is meant to be lived, not as a means to an end, but as an expression of the present? Ask yourself this: when was the last time you did something not because it was productive, not because it was useful, but simply because it brought you joy? Can you remember? Or has everything become a transaction, an exchange of time for outcome, of effort for reward? That's the hidden trap Watts warned about. When we define ourselves by what we produce, we forget how to live. We become machines in human skin, optimized but hollow.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
This isn't an argument against working. It's an argument against mistaking work for meaning. Watts wasn't saying to quit your job and meditate on a mountain. He was saying, don't let your life be consumed by a story that isn't even yours. Challenge the script. What would happen if you stopped chasing and started experiencing? If you measured a day not by what you accomplished, but by how alive you felt? Here's the paradox: the more we chase the future, the more we miss the present. And the present is the only place life actually happens. Every goal you've ever achieved happened in the now. Every memory you cherish took place in a moment you were present for. So why do we treat the present like a stepping stone instead of the destination? We've been sold a lie: that play is childish, that rest is lazy, that joy must be earned. But Watts flips that narrative. He reminds us that play is not the reward for work, it's the point of it all. And if we've forgotten how to play, we've forgotten how to live. But it gets even deeper. Because underneath our obsession with work and our guilt around play lies a much bigger illusion, one that tricks us into thinking we're alive simply because we're busy. Now that illusion is what we'll unravel next. The productivity illusion, why we mistake busyness for living. Let's be honest for a moment. The modern world has convinced us that being busy is the same thing as being valuable. That if our calendars are full, if our inboxes are overflowing, if we're juggling multiple commitments, we must be doing something right. We wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. We say things like, "I've just been so busy," with pride, as if busyness itself is proof that we're important, that we matter. But let's examine that for a second. What if busyness is just noise? What if it's a distraction, not a sign of life, but a sign that we're running from something? Alan Watts saw this long before the rest of us did. But he warned that we've mistaken motion for meaning. We confuse activity with aliveness. But a hamster in a wheel is active too, spinning endlessly, going nowhere. And that's what so many of us are doing. We're moving fast, but we're not moving forward. We're checking boxes, completing tasks, achieving goals. But for what? Are we more fulfilled? Are we more present? Are we more free? It's easy to confuse productivity with purpose because the world rewards output. You get raises, promotions, applause. But internally, something strange happens. The more we chase external validation, the quieter our inner voice becomes. We stop asking, "What do I want to do?" and instead ask, "What should I do to stay ahead?" Slowly, we become performers in a play we didn't audition for, playing roles we didn't choose, trying to impress an audience we'll never meet. Watts challenged this mindset by asking one of the simplest and most profound questions of all. What would you do if money were no object? It's a question that cuts through the noise. It bypasses the ego, the expectations, the conditioning, and it forces you to confront your own truth. Because if your answer is radically different from how you're currently living, what does that say about your life? This doesn't mean we all need to quit our jobs tomorrow, but it does mean we need to pause and ask, am I living or am I just maintaining? Because there's a version of life that looks successful on the outside but feels empty on the inside. And no amount of productivity can fill that void. Think about how often we delay our happiness. We say, "Once I finish this project, then I'll rest. Once I get that promotion, then I'll enjoy life. Once I retire, then I'll finally do what I love." But this then is a mirage. It keeps moving. You reach one milestone and the next one appears. You climb one mountain and see another. You never arrive because you've trained your mind to chase, not to be. And here's the tragedy. Many people don't realize this until it's too late. They spend decades being productive, efficient, successful by society's standards, and then wake up one day wondering where their life went. The moments of joy, the playfulness, the awe, they were always postponed, always scheduled for later. But life only happens now, and if we're not careful, we'll miss it entirely while being incredibly productive. Watts invites us to reframe the question entirely. Instead of asking, "How can I be more productive?" ask, "What kind of life feels meaningful to me?" Not in theory, but in practice. Not someday, but now. Because the truth is, productivity without presence is just glorified distraction. You can fill every hour of your day and still feel completely numb inside. You can hit every target and still feel lost. So ask yourself, what am I really working for? Who am I trying to impress? And at what cost? If we don't ask those questions, we become like actors who forget they're in a play, so caught up in the performance that we lose touch with who we really are. And that's where the ego comes in, playing its own game, keeping us trapped in identities we never chose. The ego's game, why you're not who you think you are. Let's take a deep breath and consider something uncomfortable. The version of you who works so hard, who pushes, who strives, who achieves, that version may not be the real you at all. In fact, that persona could be just a mask, carefully crafted by the ego to survive in a world obsessed with performance. Alan Watts often said, "You are under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago." And that's not just a poetic idea, it's a direct challenge to the illusion we all live under, the belief that we are our roles, our jobs, our reputations, and our past. The ego is a master of disguise. It convinces you that you are your story. It feeds you titles: employee, student, entrepreneur, artist. It tells you that you are your achievements, your failures, your traumas, your dreams. But take a step back and observe. Who is the one watching all those thoughts? Who is the one aware of the story? That silent witness behind it all that might be closer to the real you than any label could ever be. The ego loves the treadmill of work and ambition because it thrives in comparison. It's always measuring. Am I doing enough? Am I better than them? Am I falling behind? It turns life into a competition where worth is earned, not inherent. But Watts reminds us that the moment you believe you have something to prove, you've already lost the game. Because now your sense of self is tied to a scoreboard that never stops updating. And here's the kicker: even if you win, the ego will find another reason to feel incomplete. Think about how much energy we spend maintaining the image of who we think we're supposed to be. We curate our lives online. We say yes when we want to say no. We chase goals we're not even sure we care about anymore. Why? Because we're terrified of what happens if we stop, if we slow down, if we let the mask slip. But that fear is exactly what Watts asks us to confront. He says, what if the real you, the one behind the thoughts, is not broken, not lacking, not in need of fixing? What if you don't need to become someone else to be worthy of joy? Here's a mind-bending question to sit with. Who would you be if you forgot your name, your job, your past, your future? Who would you be without the script? Most people panic at the thought. The ego screams, without those things, I am nothing. But Watts flips that nothingness is not emptiness, it's freedom. It's where spontaneity, creativity, and presence are born. It's the space where you're no longer playing a role, but actually engaging with life as it unfolds. This is why children often seem more alive than adults. They haven't yet built elaborate egos. They play not to win, but to experience. They don't care about being productive, they care about being present. And maybe that's not childish. Maybe that's wisdom in its purest form. Maybe the ego's game is the real immaturity, the desperate need to be someone, to be seen, to be significant. But when you see through the game, even for a moment, everything softens. You stop fighting so hard. You stop needing to prove your existence. You start to live. Not as a character in a story, but as awareness itself, fluid, changing, real. And from that space, work becomes lighter, play becomes deeper, relationships become more honest, but life stops being a performance and starts being an experience. So here's the challenge. Can you let go of the identity you've built, even for a moment? Can you step into that terrifying, beautiful emptiness and just be? Because in that space, something sacred happens. You stop living for tomorrow. You stop working to earn joy. You realize the thing you were chasing was never outside you, it was always here, waiting, in the stillness beneath the noise. The sacred art of doing nothing, how stillness unlocks life's greatest joys. There's a moment, if you're lucky, when you stop running, not because you've reached the finish line, but because you finally realize there never was one. Alan Watts called this realization the art of doing nothing. Not in the lazy sense, but in the profound, almost spiritual sense of allowing life to be what it is, without forcing it into a mold. It's not about passivity, it's about presence. And in a world addicted to motion, stillness is a radical act. We've been conditioned to think that doing nothing is a waste of time, that if we're not producing, we're falling behind. But Watts flips that assumption on its head. He says the most meaningful moments in life often happen in the gaps and the silences between words, the pauses between actions, in the spaces where no one is watching and nothing is demanded of us. It's in those moments that we reconnect with being itself, stripped of goals or labels. But imagine sitting by a river, not to fish, not to meditate, not to post a photo, just to sit, to be. Your mind will resist. It will say, this is unproductive. You should be doing something useful. But who decided that usefulness is the highest good? Who defined life as a race against time rather than a dance within it? Stillness isn't emptiness. It's where the noise dies down enough for you to hear your own soul again. It's where clarity arises not from thinking harder, but from letting go. Watts often joked that the universe plays hide and seek with itself through us. And in that game, we get so caught up in the seeking that we forget we're also the hiding. We are the mystery looking for itself, and the moment we stop trying to figure it all out is when the truth gently appears. Ask yourself, when was the last time you allowed yourself to do nothing without guilt? To simply exist, not as a worker, not as a parent, not as a thinker, but as a human being. If work is what we do to survive, and play is what we do to feel alive, then stillness is how we remember why we're here at all. Watts warned us not because life is bleak, but because it is too beautiful to miss. But his message was never to abandon responsibility, but to stop mistaking responsibility for identity, to stop trading every sacred moment for imaginary future rewards, to wake up now before the entire show passes by unseen. So maybe the next time you feel the pressure to do more, achieve more, be more, you'll pause. You'll smile at the absurdity of it all. And in that pause, in that simple act of being, you'll feel it, the quiet joy that needs no reason, the play that asks for no reward, and the life that was never waiting for you somewhere else. It was always here. It's still here. And now so are you.